Right, okay. So hello and welcome to another episode of the All About Value podcast. It seems like we have an ongoing feature where the guests are slowly becoming just as handsome as me, which is a problem. I'm not sure if I like that.
Mate, I wouldn't even big myself up as much as that, mate. I've got a long way to go.
You big yourself up in every other sense. What are you talking about?
True, mate, true.
Right, so today we have Richard Dickson. Now, Richard, I tell you something, there's a lot of things I get to, just from talking to you off camera, but now you seem like a really easygoing personality, which is kind of maybe not what I expected in a sense. But I've done quite a few of these now, and I would probably say that you might be the most divisive character that I've had in the podcast thus far, in terms of the reaction I've got when I told people. Some people have been like, "Oh, that's amazing that I'll listen to that." Some people have been like, "He's a total," and he's a total dick in that, right? So it's like you're very like, I don't know if you've ever watched like WWE. Like, this is a pure random reference.
Bits and pieces. I never really watched it that much, but I know some people.
But you know, like so John Cena was like the face of the company for like 10 years or something, like that. And the crowd, half the crowd would be like, "Let's go, Cena. Cena sucks." That's what. That's
like Brock Lesnar. He was pure divisive, wasn't he? He was dead divisive when he went to the UFC as well, like Brock.
Well, okay, so I've kind of been wondering which area to start in here, right? But just based on what we were talking about off camera, I kind of wanted to go into. We had just went past, like, this is not, when I came in here, this was not what I thought we'd start with, right? I just thought it was quite funny what you were saying about types of women that you should avoid in dating scenarios, because that was
right. I'll go over this, right? Because for the viewers.
Because I spoke to Cass Milligan about this, right? And people have messaged me about the conversation we had about this, where I was talking to him saying, like, there's a lot of relationships and things where I feel like as there's guys and girls that are just like in situations because it makes them feel better about themselves rather than actually wanting to be with somebody. And there's that sort of codependent thing. That was something I wasn't really expecting to get in with because, but we ended up talking about it a bit, and there was people that were like, that's how I feel about it, and I'm in these situations because of this." So, and of all the things I thought was going to come out of a Cass Milligan podcast, I didn't think that was one of them. And then just from what you just said before we started recording, I thought I would pick up on that and start from there. So you were saying types of people not to, and part of the reason why I mentioned this as well is because I wanted to kind of probe you on that a wee bit based on what you said. So you were saying types of women not to go with.
So just to further your point that you say there about the whole codependency thing and all that, I was reading the other day, and I would butcher the statistics if I tried to actually tell you the numbers, right? But there's been an alarming increase over the last 15 to 25 years in statistics of loneliness in men, right? And I think loads of people talk about, cohabiting and blah, 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 being like worse for women because something to do with like having somewhere to live. I can't remember the fucking shite that they spout, right? But it's just no true. But the statistics with loneliness in men, I think, ends up having people, and I can only speak as a man, right? Obviously, ends up having people choosing to be with or accept things that they wouldn't normally accept out of potentially fear of being alone, a time investment they've put into that, or so on and so forth, right? Now, what I was saying, I guess, is jovial in some ways, but is also quite serious in others, right? And it depends on how you feel about yourself being with these types of people, right? So what I said to you was, if you go on someone's Instagram and you see like private jets or yachts or like insane £4,000-5,000 dinners, VIP sections in clubs all the time, it's probably not someone that you're gonna have an easy time with, right? It's just not, because they're probably around people that they deem in their estimations to be like above average or higher class people, right? And one of the other things, and look, butcher me if you want on this, but I'm 26 years old. My missus is 20. We live together, get a dog together, and our setup's good. So I know what I want and I've got what I want. So I'm saying this from my perspective. Other people, I've got friends who do the exact opposite of what I'm saying just now, and it somehow works for them. I would rather jump off the fucking Erskine Bridge personally, right? But I'm just not a big fan of people getting involved in relationships where there's like kids involved. And do you want to know my main reason why?
Sure, yeah.
Right. So the reason I do this, the reason I say this, right, and it's never something that I've had to encounter, thankfully. But the reason I say this is, one, I don't like the expectation. If I imagine myself, right, I don't like the expectation of having to pay for someone else's kids' stuff. Do you get what I mean? Because like, if they're like, oh, they need new trainers, I'd be like, fuck that kid. There's nothing to do with me. Like, I'm not buying you fucking trainers. Like, get the fuck, right? The other thing is discipline as well. Because, you know, the whole classic teen movie thing where there's like a stepdad and like the stepdad tries to say something and they start crying going, you're not my real dad. Like, if I'm living in a household with someone else's child, like, I can't discipline them the same way I would discipline my own child. Now, that's not me saying that when I have kids, I'm going to fucking uppercut them when they do something wrong, right? But it's like, you want to be able to discipline all the children equally. And also, fundamentally, you can tell me I'm wrong, you will never love that child as much as you would love your own child. You just wouldn't. Like, if you had your own child hanging off a fucking bridge with the fucking sea full of sharks below them, your own blood child, and then your missus' child that Davey for fucking Govan fucking dropped in her one day when she was fucking 17, what child are you going to choose to save? It's going to be your own blood. Do you know what I mean? So I just think there's too many complications with that when it comes to relationships. I think I could never do it. Do you agree on any of that?
Well, okay, so you made, before we go into the third point you made, we'll tackle these things so far, right? Because I've got some opinions on this. What's funny is that the third point you made was the one that actually made me laugh. These two are the more sort of serious points that you've made. So going back to what you sort of originally said about, just to touch on the whole loneliness and men situation, that, you know, there's a lot of talk about men's mental health and things like that, and I think there's like this expectation of how men are supposed to come across, but that's kind of a different topic that we'll dive into after I address this, right? So we were talking about these particular situations. First of all, you mentioned how if somebody's posting like stuff like
jets, yachts, and all that, yeah.
Now, but isn't that technically what's like along the lines of what you are doing right now?
So everything
for like cars and stuff like that?
Statistically, right?
Do you know, I mean, you know,
100%, right? But I'll debunk it in 10 seconds. It's easy, right? So statistically, when you look at that, now in my household, right, with my partner, she's very academic and entrepreneurially driven. So Jess will make a lot of money, right? She'll do very well, albeit she's younger, so she needs like more time to develop as I did when I was coming into business, right? So she will eventually become the exception to the rule, right? But when you look at everything I have, whether it be a Rolls Royce, whether it's me flying about the place, whether it's me at dinner, who paid for that? Me, right? 99% of women that you see doing those things, it's because they have a successful partner. Fact. Right? Then people make the arguments about Beyonce, Rihanna, this and that, right? Beyonce's husband is the richest man in hip hop, Jay-Z, right? First ever hip hop billionaire. Beyonce would be extremely successful and do very well, but her stock rose so much with Jay-Z. So if you're like in our age bracket, you're in your 20s and you're speaking to a girl and they've got photos on a yacht or they've got photos on a private jet, be realistic with yourself. Do you think they paid for that? No. It's the same reason, like some people use the chess adage. I personally don't, because I'm not amazing at chess, right? But nearly everything men have, they have to work for. There are many things that women get access to that they don't have to work for. Now, there's many things that men can't do, such as, you know, have the capability for pregnancy and raise kids appropriately. The same way if I took my child to nursery and every nursery teacher was a guy, I wouldn't leave them there, because I wouldn't want to leave my child with all men. It's just, there's just some things that women are naturally adept to that men aren't. But when it comes to stuff like that, I'm not saying there's no one out there. There's no women that can achieve that. That's not what I'm saying. Statistically, 99% of the time, if you see a 20 to 25 to 30-year-old women on a yacht or on a jet or at a super expensive dinner or courtside at a fucking NBA game, it's because they're with a man, have access to a man who can do those things. So I'm not wanting to, if I was in the dating scene, which I'm thankfully not, I wouldn't want to go for someone like that because it's just...
Okay, so it's just to be clear, it's not that I don't understand. I understand everything that you're saying. Right?
Yeah, of course.
But just caveat on that a wee bit, like to come back on it a wee bit. You're saying 99% of the time that's the case. When you say that's a fact, like where are you actually getting that from? Is that just in your mind you're thinking that you believe 99% of that is, or is that an actual fact coming from somewhere? Like
I would say statistically, last time I checked, I'm in the top 1% of earners for my age bracket, and nearly every age bracket above myself, right? I done some stats on this. So I would say with confidence that I am within the top 1% in the UK. That means that a lot of the people I have access to and the people inside of my network, the people I do business with, are also 1%ers. There are people that I'm personal friends with that I could call and talk to, ranging from friends of mine who aren't financially motivated, who are normal people with normal jobs, all the way up to people who have net worths in excess of £100 million, right? Every single person that I know who is worth over 4 or 5 million quid is a man. Now, that might be just my network, right? There's probably networks of successful women that probably don't really speak to men that are millionaires or 1%ers. So it's obviously going to be my bias as well. But on the same hand, if you see a 25-year-old man on a yacht or a jet that is theirs, that's probably going to have came from family money. So this falls into the category both for young people, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's very unlikely for someone at 25 or 26, a young man, to have their own jet. It's very unlikely, right? Generally what you'll find is if there's a bunch of girls on a yacht, it's some guy that's 40 or 50 years old who's got this yacht in Dubai or something, and they pay like models and all that to come on the yachts and whatnot. And it's very well known that stuff like this happens all around the world in places like, you know, the yacht and jet hot spots like in Croatia and Dubai. It's just very well known. I would love to see statistics on it. Mm. And if anyone has statistics to prove me wrong on this, I'd be more than happy to see. This is my perception from what I've understood being around some of the 1% of the world.
Fair enough. I mean, I wish I had statistics in front of me to try and do this, but okay, so again, I understand completely what you're saying, but then do you not think that there's a couple of things here? One thing is that, and this is like a double question, but in different areas. Mm-hmm. Do you not think that whole sort of perspective on the fact that men are more likely to make the money and such, there's an element of that that's kind of old school patriarchy kind of way of looking at it.
And I'll accept I'm a traditional man, by the way. Yeah. I'll accept I'm old school in many regards.
And there's elements of that, okay, obviously, but do you not think that there's a part, like the world's sort of changing in that way, or this, in the idea that there are more opportunities for women to, for lack of a better way of putting it, grind their success the same way that you have or someone else has. And I think that maybe when we talk about this kind of thing, like getting away from the idea that isn't possible for women would be more of a positive way of...
I never said it was impossible though.
I don't know.
I made it very clear that it is possible. True. It's just unlikely. It's also possible for me to win Mr. Olympia, but I'm probably not going to do it.
Well, it's like I was going to use it's possible for me to go a run, but that's not really the case.
You said it.
I had to get some sort of joke in this very serious discussion here. Because I know there'll be there's plenty of women watching this right now that are streaming at their screens thinking, pull them up for this. So I'm just thinking in my head, right? So my sort of, as I'm hearing you say that, if I'm a woman, right, let's just pretend that I'm a woman for a second, right? Not that the beard kind of ruins that a bit, but we'll just, suspend your disbelief a little bit. I would say to that, well, what this guy doesn't understand is this is because this is the way. Like, so, the way that I would put it is, I'm in a wheelchair, right? And for years in my life, people have put me in a box for what I can and can't do, and it's very sort of, it changes your whole perspective on what you believe you're capable of. And I think that people with disabilities have been suppressed in that way for many years. When you put that to women, I think women have been in the same category as that, in the sense that their rights have been suppressed for a lot longer than like white straight males have had have been the peak of the what you would call human race for the majority of life. Really, when you think about it in terms of what we've had in terms of rights and things like that. Whereas I think a lot of the reason why this exists in the first place is because the opportunities were never actually equal, in the sense that you had women in these roles, you had men in these roles, but now we're getting as we adapt and become, more aware of these things, opportunities are starting to get a little bit more equal, and women are becoming less and less suppressed. I'm talking about the whole existence of the human race. Women have been not seen as equal to men, which has created these sort of stereotypes of
only in certain cultures and certain civilizations. I don't think that's true across the whole world. You look at places like Egypt, for example, Persia, empires like that, women were like gods. That's why we had Cleopatra. That's why people like that existed. Statistically, I would say that's true, but also when it was time to pick up the swords and march for 1,000 miles when you were one of fucking Genghis Khan's soldiers, they weren't pulling women out of bed. Now, that's not me saying that. By the way, I think life for everyone 3,000 years ago was probably shit.
Yeah, no.
Right? It probably sucked, right?
Of course.
It probably sucked. But one of the things that I would ask you, right, and this is a genuine question, you might have an answer for it, you might not have an answer for it, but when you look at TikTok, and this is something my missus always says to me, and she's always like in disbelief that so many women think like this, right? If you take 100 women under 30, let's say, right, 100 women under 30, and you say to them, right, you can choose one life path from these two options. You can either give 100% with no guarantee of success, but you can give 100% whether it be in a business, whether it be in a career like you actually want to build up within some other business or whatever, or you can be with a man that's going to allow you to have 50 to 60,000 pounds per year of free income. You're going to get a Range Rover. You're going to have a very nice house. You're going to be able to look after as many kids as it is you want to have. You get X amount of holidays per year, but you have to choose one right now. Do you honestly think the majority are going to choose give 100% without the chance of success?
But I mean, I get what you're saying.
Do you think it's a yes or a no? It's a yes or a no.
It's depending on that person, to be fair. I mean, I think you can say that for anything, though. I mean, I get what you're saying, but if somebody offered me that, I'd be like, well, I'll take the easier option.
Fair enough, but men are more likely to want to go down that business route, and that can also fall down into, like what you said, traditional values, how the man goes to work, the woman stays at home, watches the kids and all that stuff, right? Which isn't how every relationship works. It isn't how every marriage works. And yes, the world is changing a lot, but if you gave, say, 100 women that option, I would say you would at least see 75% take the Range Rover, stay at home mum, holidays, clothes bought for them, way of life, like mostly. And most of the women that I know that chose the other way, to be career motivated, not focused on having a family, blah, 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 nearly all of them that I've met, granted it's not a huge number of people, but out of the ones that I've met, they've all thought the same, that when they hit the late 30s, 40, early 40s, mid 40s, and they realise that all they've got to show for their life is a career, some certificates from university to do with their degree, they don't have a family, they don't have a stable relationship, they have no kids, they realise that their life is actually going to be pretty lonely as they move into the late 40s, the 50s, they're not going to have grandkids, and I am yet to meet a woman that doesn't regret not having kids, personally.
But do you not think what you just said there, the last point, do you not think that would be the same regardless of anyone's sex or gender? Like, if I was a guy that had a successful career and had all this stuff but didn't have a family or kids or people that I loved around me, I would probably feel the same as that. No?
You probably would, I would imagine so. But
So where
there
does
is
sex come
no
into this? Like, where is the gender? Why is that relevant?
there's no stigma around men being successful in business. But see when I launch a business, right? All my mates go, "Oh, nice, Richard, that's cool, right?" When a girl launch a business, yes, you're a boss, you're fucking this, you're that. By the way, all the lassies saying that, never do business with that person, never buy any products, never fucking turn up to any of their fucking events, right? They're just blowhards on the internet, 9 times out of 10. But having children, right? Men and women have children together, right? There's a very different relationship paternally between like the father's relationship and the mother's. That's why, see, when I was a little boy, if I needed help doing something, I would go and get my dad, right? But if I hurt myself and I was upset, I would go and get my mum. So the emotional connections, the emotional responses are very different. That's why, like, I think I was lucky when I grew up that my mum was in the house most of the time. Like, she stayed at home, looked after me and my sister, albeit it wasn't because my dad was super successful and we had lots of money. We fucking had the exact opposite, right? But I was grateful to have my mum at home. And I don't know if my mum was that grateful to have us. We were probably a pain in the arse, right? But I think it's more common to look towards women regretting not having kids, also because there's a timestamp on women having kids. I could be 80 years old and still have kids as a man. I'm producing enough testosterone and all that. Women, they have menopause and stuff like that. I think it puts a bit more of a timestamp on it. Obviously, there's modern stuff now. You can freeze eggs and all that. I don't really fucking know how that shit works, but there's different things you can do to combat that. But yeah, I'm yet to meet a woman who doesn't regret not having kids.
Now, that is true what you said about there is a different time stamp on things like that. But I guess what I mean by that when I say that is that when we talk about these things and we say that I've heard that viewpoint from a lot of men, the idea that, you know, women feel more like lonely for not having kids or such later on in life. But then I just feel like the bigger point in that is that we all, as humans, eventually want that love and connection around us, whether we're man or woman, do you know what I mean?
100%.
So I think the bigger sort of way of looking at that is the fact that, you know, all these things that we're talking about really are social constructs, right? So like, I'm in a wheelchair and I'm labelled disabled, you know.
Would you ever refer to yourself using that word? Just out of curiosity?
Well, I used to have a disdain for it, right? Like, I used to think this is a terrible word. But what I realise is that I've done a bit more research on it since then, and I think that the situation is the fact that that is the word that we use, and it's not so much the word itself, but more so the connotations of of how it's been used. For example, like you type in your iPhone, you'll type in your password. If you type it in wrong enough times, it'll come up saying this phone is disabled. So it means
it's not working as it's meant to, I guess, is what the point that they're making.
Whereas, so that in itself is like an ableist construct.
Okay.
Whereas
I've never even thought of it like that. That's probably because I'm not in a wheelchair or anything. Do you know what I mean?
Well, this is the podcast is here to enlighten folk. You know, it's to try and, this is what we're saying, it's to try and bring these issues to the forefront of society.
For sure.
And make people more aware. Which is why it's good to have people like yourself with a big platform on to talk about these things. But, you know, that's what, when we refer to people, like, talking about the social contract type of thing, that in itself has been like a negative way of portraying disability, you know? And when we talk about all these different areas, whether it would be, you know, women wanting kids, you know, eventually feeling that way, all of it's kind of based on what we have preconceived as a social contract in itself, if that makes sense, in the way that we don't just look at somebody as the way that we feel and process things. So, for example, right, one of the things that I've mentioned in this podcast a few times is that, like you just said, that I'm in a wheelchair and you're not, right? And a lot in the traditional view from society is that makes me a lot different than you are. Like, just, we have different opportunities. I'm less likely to have the opportunities that you have traditionally, you know, because that's the way that I'm perceived as like a lesser. I've been perceived as like a lesser capable human being than you. Now, that in itself is like a barrier to my success, you know? And so what I've kind of mentioned on the podcast is part of these chats and part of this whole thing is to show that if I can have a conversation with you about, all these different issues, and we can connect over like things that you felt in your life and things that I felt in my life, and how, there were different situations, but we both felt the same at some points.
We're not that different.
Aye, exactly.
For sure.
We're not
for
that
sure.
different. Like, you felt shite, I felt shite, I felt happy, you felt happy. We all feel like we are all different in our own way. And part of life, part of the beauty of life, I think, is embracing your own individuality and make it and that's where true happiness comes from.
That's what I hate about not so much just the internet, right? But I feel like, see when you drive through town or whatever and you see a group of like 14, 15-year-old boys, they're all wearing like the same Nike trackie, the same colour, the same trainers. Do you get what I mean? Like everybody is so similar these days. I think that's why I've always went mental with like the colour of my cars and stuff like that, because I've just like done it deliberately just to stand out. Do you get what I mean? Like, I think it's very important to embrace your own individuality, and that goes down into the stuff that you chose. The same way you chose to put that t-shirt on today and I chose to put this hoodie on, but also the things that we didn't have a choice over, because as far as I know, you didn't wake up one day and go and say to someone, by the way, I would like to be in a wheelchair, right? It's not confined to your life because you've played sports at a high level. You've done all the things that, like you said, people would assume, oh, what? How is that guy able to do that? Well, because he's a fucking human with drive, determination and motivation, and he might not play the sport in a traditional sense that you would imagine sport being played, but I bet he fucking plays it better than you, probably, right? So it's about taking the things that make us individual, that we chose to have and we develop ourselves, and the things that perhaps we were given, whether we liked them forever or whether we hated them forever,
Exactly, that's definitely something that we can agree on, because like you say, there's always a choice in certain areas of your life, and so there's embracing that part of you that is what makes you yourself, and then there's also the fact that, on the flip side of that, acknowledging the fact that we are all human, and there's not an emotion that you felt that somebody else hasn't felt at some point in their life. So there's no new emotion that we're feeling. I think the more that we become aware of that, and aware of the fact that these are all things that we all go through at some point in our life, you never meet somebody that's like 80 years old on their deathbed that says, do you know what, every single day of my life has been absolutely amazing. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, at first I was like, how can I take this stigma away from disability or the word disabled or whatever, and things like that. And that was kind of where the name of the podcast came from. It was like all about the idea that the word ability is in the word disability. And I always thought that was like, because all my life everybody was like, I could be the best sport player or the best whatever at something, but it would just be like, look, he's in a wheelchair, look at his disability. And you just wanted to stand out for anything else. But it's just showing that we can connect through our own struggles, even though we've been through different paths, and that shows people that, there's no reason to sort of demonize or look down on anyone with any sort of disability, because, like you say, we didn't get to choose that. And actually the reality of it is that at some point in your life, you're going to be less able than you are right now.
100%.
And it's almost like something that people don't want to talk about. Like, by the way, in case you didn't know, we're all going to die.
Aye.
And it's like that, it's not, it's obviously it's in your day-to-day life, there's no point in thinking about that constantly, but the idea is that when we design society, when we design these, when we design buildings, when we make things, when we talk about accessibility, when we talk about equality, it should be based around the fact that we're all thinking that the way you are right now, the way that you can run and walk and do all these things, is going to be the way that you are to the end of time.
Nah,
and
I could go out and get in my fucking car and be in a crash and lose all of those privileges. Do you get what I mean? It's not like you get to have those things forever. And like you say, if you're fortunate enough to get to a certain age, that is going to come with health issues, whether that be arthritis, whether it be stuff that's more serious like motor neurons disease or Parkinson's or whatever. Like you don't know what could potentially happen to you until you get there. Obviously there's things you can do to mitigate. So like, if you don't want lung cancer when you grow up, maybe don't smoke. Do you get me? There's certain things you can do to mitigate your risk with certain stuff, but then there's also some stuff that just over time things will break down, and I guess you have to be able to maneuver and operate inside a different way of life. Which, by the way, when I think about it, I could imagine that would be even harder for someone who has been, I think the best way to say it, if you would refer to someone as able-bodied, I don't know if that's what you would call them, right? But if someone has lived the whole life with the privilege of being able to walk, run, do all that stuff without assistance, and then when they get to 70, 80, stuff starts going bad, I imagine, this sounds mental, but I imagine they'd like die quicker because they wouldn't be able to handle that. Whereas someone who's maybe had some form of health issue in the past or something else, they might be able to handle that a little bit better because they've actually been able to change how they think and how they operate their day-to-day life to live with whatever condition they have or have had previously. And I imagine that, you know, they're probably more accepting and more realistic about the aging process, because that's what I always try and say about myself, is I try and be a realist all the time. Do you know what I mean? I just say, if my opinion differs to someone, I'm always gonna be like, nah, that's not what I think, because I think it's very important to be honest to yourself, you know?
100%. That's definitely, it's something it's hard. One of the hardest things you can do is be honest with yourself and how
100%.
How you actually feel is like, but especially when there's so many distractions. You know, there's social media, there's pubs every corner of Glasgow. So it's like everywhere you go, there's always something that you can do that can take your mind off how you're actually feeling. And that is a big problem, particularly for men in mental health and things like that. And I do want to get into that, and I appreciate the way that you've asked me about that, because I thought that was quite. I always enjoy when I'm doing podcasts and I can sort of see somebody's head kind of going, actually, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Because then you go, that's what this is kind of about. That's the point of this. So it's nice to see you sort of taking that in and sort of feeling that. But I need to go back to this a little bit, because there was a couple of things that we didn't address there, just in terms of when we were talking about the whole idea of women and working and such, because just because I didn't want to forget, because there are other things I want to go into here, right?
Yeah, of course.
My point really is, because I use disability as an example because I'm not a woman, right? And it's about trying to show what I'm meaning by not necessarily using them as a direct example. But the point is that everything that we conceive to be reality, conceive to be tradition, is based off of what we've already decided society is or has been in the past. Whereas I think one of the important things now, as we develop all this technology and all this sort of knowledge that we have, is that human beings are all have similar emotions that we go through. And so how can we then, you know, take away these social constructs that we've had in the past that have prevented somebody with disability from maybe playing sports, that have prevented women from being successful in business? You know, because a lot of that area that we speak about, there's several factors there, like, you know, like sexual harassment, you know, and, you know, abuse and things like that. But those are things that women have had to go through that men. So a lot of men, not all men, but a lot of men don't even need to think about. Like, I can go down, like, you can walk down the street in a dark night through a group of people and not worry that you're going to be like raped or abused in some sort of way. But that's always kind of the back of their minds, even in any sort of area of life. And I think that's just, you know, I get, like, obviously I think that most women, a lot of women want to have families, right? Like you say, and that is natural. But the point I'm trying to get at is it's about making sure that you know, the opportunity is there, and that men understand that is okay for women to pursue those areas of life.
100%. There's nothing wrong with that. Look,
you know what I mean?
everyone has individual civil liberty, right? The same way I could get up there now and fucking empty that cup of water over my head. It might not be the smartest idea in the world, but I have the personal choice, in my opinion, as long as it's legal, moral, and ethical. The reason I say legal, moral, and ethical is that just because something's legal doesn't always mean it's moral or ethical, right? Because you could fucking sell slaves 100 years ago and that was legal. Do you get what I mean? The law isn't always a good boundary for what is moral and what is ethical, right? But the only point I was making was that out of the people, perhaps limited women that I've met who haven't had kids, they've regretted it. they've focused on their career and they've regretted it. I know many other women who have been career focused and excelled and done extremely well and got to the top of their industry or the top of their sector whilst also having kids and taking maternity leave and all these different things, right? So are there women out there in the world that are 50? Let's say they're partially retired. I personally don't see retirement as a big goal of mine. It's not something I aspire to do. I want to have a life that I don't feel that I need to retire from. That's the way I've always thought about it. But let's say you're a woman at 50, menopause, no chance of having kids, you're not married, or maybe you are married, or whatever it may be. Are there women in the world who are sitting there just now with a nice pension and they do consultancy 1 or 2 days a week and they go on holiday all the time and they have their bottle of wine at night time and they're super happy with their lives? Of course there are. I am certain there are out there. I'm just yet to meet one of them. I just haven't met one. So I don't think it's impossible. I don't think they don't exist. My understanding from my experience thus far would be statistically that it sways towards what I think, but also that could be wrong. I could be wrong, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think we can agree there, because for me it was a situation there where you're basing it off your own experience, which is
100%
fair enough.
That's all anyone can do to a degree.
Exactly, like that's a lot of the thing when I get in quite deep conversations about like mental health and things on the podcast, and people and I always make the point of saying I'm not a therapist. I'm not a qualified mental health professional.
Of course.
I'm basing it off of what I've been through. So I understand and respect that. It was just kind of, and then the rest of what you just said there was the point I was kind of trying out of you, in the sense that I wanted to give you the opportunity to make it clear to everybody that you understand that is actually, it's not like your experiences are the only thing that are there. Because
of course, because if it was, like my girlfriend, she's got so many interests in different businesses and like is doing so much with regards to her own entrepreneurial ventures. If that was how I thought in an absolute sense, I would be saying to her, what the fuck are you doing opening a business? You can't do that. You're a woman. Like, where's my son? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's all you're good for. Whereas I understand that she is traveling a path less followed in my experience, right? And it's interesting what you said there. What was it you said 2 minutes ago? Talking about how you're not a qualified mental health practitioner and stuff like that, right? And this might be controversial, but sometimes I don't actually think having a piece of paper that says you're qualified in something means you're any fucking good at it. And the reason I say that is that if you were sitting here, say you're take yourself back to the moment in your life where you felt the very worst, right? And you could find someone, another man, woman, whoever, right, that had no degree, was a normal person that worked at fucking, I don't know, Greg's the Baker's, anywhere, right? And that person had been exactly where you were and had got themselves out of that. Or you could have some random person who has a piece of paper from Strathclyde University that says they know about how you feel, but they've never had that feeling. Who would you trust to speak to first? The person who's been there and got out of it, or the person that has a bit of paper that says they know what they're talking about?
Well, that's interesting. Like, obviously, I think when you've been through similar experiences, it's easier to communicate those kind of things. And I get your point now. Now, I'm trying to think the right way of wording this. What I would say about that is that, for me, the biggest thing about what you've just said there is that communication is key. So, like, your knowledge is only really relevant if you can communicate in a way that connects with someone else. So it's not about me saying something to you that I understand. It's me saying something to you that I know that you understand. You know what I mean? So, like, understanding the way someone is, the way they think about something, and then saying, and then if I have an opinion on something, or I have a way of putting something, and I go, right, well, that's the way I understand it, but it won't really make sense to them. So how can I communicate this in a way that connects with what they're saying? And that's something I think a lot of people struggle with, is the actual idea of, yeah, you can feel things and go through things, but then how can you actually put that in a way that's going to connect with someone else? And that's just something that, for whatever reason, I've found as a natural thing for myself, just because out of a deep desire to want to help other people. But when it comes to actually, so that is very useful, regardless of whether you're qualified or not. Being able to do that can help loads of people. If you're that in tune with your emotion that you can communicate to somebody else that they understand it, whether you're qualified or not, that'll help folk. On the flip side of that, despite having that capability, I've not necessarily had the tools to deal with those issues.
Mm-hmm.
So like, yeah, I could tell you in the past how I felt and how I've dealt with things, but just because I know how I felt doesn't necessarily mean that I know how to deal with those feelings.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
I think for me, I'm all about practical experience forever, right? And it goes through any facet of my life, right? If you decide you want to be good at a sport, you're probably going to be coached or look to be coached by someone who has achieved something in that sport. So let's say that I wanted to be a professional boxer. I would want to be coached by someone. Maybe they weren't the best professional boxer in the world, because there's some people who don't excel as an athlete but an exceptional coach, right? So I would probably want to be coached by someone who has boxed professionally before, not by someone who has a degree in boxing. Not that I think that exists, right? But I would prefer to have someone with practical experience. The same way as an entrepreneur and as a business person, nearly all business teachers in the UK, regardless whether that's higher business studies, A-levels, O-levels, HND, HNC, whatever it may be, nearly all of the lecturers and teachers teaching that topic have never owned or operated a business. So how the fuck are you meant to teach me, a 14, 15, 16-year-old kid who has entrepreneurial ambitions? This is the whole reason the Yes Academy exists, by the way, the Young Entrepreneur Society that I created, because none of them have any practical experience. They've never been in a business. Could they teach you stuff about how to organise your books and how to put together a cash flow forecast and that? Yeah, I'm sure they can, but they can't teach you what it's like to be in a business because they've never been there. They've never done it, you know? So I think with how my life has went and the things that I do, things I'm interested in, I always go for people who have been there and done it. I've got a bit of an opinion personally that the value of a degree is seriously overestimated. Like, I think degrees are far less valuable than people think within specific sectors. Does that mean if I needed a brain surgery, I'm going to find the guy who's Googled brain surgery and read some things on it? Nah, I'm going to go to the surgeon who's done 10 years of study and oversight and all that kind of stuff, right? But generally, I think degrees are hardly even worth the paper they're written on. I know very few people that have a job specific to the degree that they have. I personally think university, for the most part, is an absolute sham.
Well, that is quite the take. But what I'll say this is self-teaching and going through, your own experiences is very valuable. And I would say that, we can agree on that. Like, I would say that is definitely something that is very important.
For sure.
On the flip side of that, like, you compared it to like boxing or sport, for example, there, right? And then you use the brain surgeon analogy, which is there's certain areas in life where you're like, well, that would be, you would need to be a higher level qualified person to do that kind of thing. Like, that is a necessity. So just to clarify for people listening, there's certain areas where 100% a degree in that is kind of essential.
For sure. For sure.
Right. But I do get what you mean, and the kind of the way that I'll put it is this. So when we talk about the mental health thing, for example, right, I'm saying that I can talk about it from my own experiences, right? But I would not be here today if it wasn't for. There's a couple of things. One thing is that I would be better at it. I would be much more informed at it if I actually went and done a course on it, in terms of, yes, I'm very experienced in my own mental health issues and what I've been through, but there's like such a wide spectrum of different things that happen, right?
For sure.
And that's one thing where it depends on what area we're talking about. If somebody is actually wanting to help with someone's mental health and a very wide spectrum of things, then getting education on that is very important and very valuable for them to be successful at that field. And then going back to my own experience, for example, when I said that I didn't necessarily have the tools to deal with these things, so I would be like, a few years ago when I started doing this podcast, I started it because I had there was a lot, I had I had an educational reason because there was a project I was doing and they encouraged me to do it, so we started it. But there was like a gap between me starting it and actually, like between me agreeing to start it and actually doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And in that period, there was like an event that happened to me where I felt all these things, and I was like, "Wow, I don't see myself in the best of light, really, do I?
Mm-hmm.
This isn't necessarily a great thing." And I thought that for me was like my breakthrough moment, right? But see, since then, that exact scenario has happened 2, 3, 4 more times, right? Without going into detail to exactly what it is, but just about how I felt, like that same feeling. So I was aware of what that was and what happened to me, but I didn't actually know how I could get past it or how I could deal with it. You know, I repeated the same patterns, the same habits multiple times in a row until I was like, right, I need to talk to somebody. And it actually happened to be qualified therapist who's behind this curtain here, Paul, who produces this podcast. He's also a qualified therapist.
I always thought he was a fucking weird. No, I'm joking. Mate. Sorry, mate. I'm getting on.
And see, like talking to him and going through things, and there's just certain. It's like I would say to him, like, I know how I feel about this, but I don't know how to actually deal with it and go past it and move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And he helped me get the tools to figure out exactly what I had to do to put that in place and become, you know, somebody that could deal with his problems and actually change his ways and be more the person I wanted to be without carrying everything in my past for me. So when we talk about therapy, when we talk about mental health, like, I agree with you that there's a lot of self-empowerment and going through your own experiences, and there's a lot of value and maybe because of the way that you are as a person, for example, the way that you have grown up and are now you're a very confident guy who knows himself, who's aware of what he wants, who doesn't necessarily have deep internal struggles about things because you're processing things daily and you're able to just deal with these things, you know, because you know who you are and you know what you want and all that. So for you specifically, and for the people like you and your audience, maybe that thought process of going to people with knowledge of experience is much more useful than going to somebody that's qualified, because you're wanting life experience to help grow your perspective on things.
Mm-hmm.
You don't necessarily need somebody that's qualified because you're already dealing with everything that you need to deal with internally. So that's maybe where your perspective, your opinion on that comes from, and that makes sense. You know, it's like that's how I would expect it to be. But then if you look at somebody that's maybe not had the confidence you have or the perspective that you have that has a bit more damaged internally of how they feel about themselves and all these things, having somebody that's professionally qualified can help them find the tools to get through those barriers.
I would probably imagine that if you took, say, 10 therapists, I don't know what the actual degree would be called, but let's just say they are specifying in men's mental health. Let's just say that, right? And you took 10 of them. I would like to imagine, although again, I might be wrong, I would like to imagine that the top 2 or 3 of those people, and say they're all qualified, they all have like degrees and all that, right? I would like to imagine the top 2 or 3 in terms of getting people results, they have probably been through those struggles themselves. So that's not to say that the degree is worthless. Mm-hmm. I think there's even an even bigger power with someone who's maybe went through that, managed to defeat it, and then went, you know what, I'm going to go and do a degree now because I want to have this qualification to go and help people. I just personally, and I need to be clear, right? And I say this with, I mean, it's something I'm proud of, something I'm happy that I can say. I've never been depressed. I've never had, and to my knowledge, I've never had any mental health problems. I don't feel anxiety. I don't go through anything like that. And I'm very appreciative for that. So maybe I'm not the best person to comment on that stuff, right? But I would imagine that if I was in a position where I was like having in like mental turmoil, I would like to have someone, whether they have a degree or not, who has felt how I've felt. They're not just saying they get how I've felt. So I don't know.
100%. No, like, can I just say 100%? Like that.
That's a good combination, right?
We agree on that. Like, I think the majority of people would want that as well. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is, if you meet somebody that's not qualified in this stuff and has been through the exact same situation, like you compared that person to me or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're probably not equipped at that current moment to communicate to you how they've got through that, is what I'm trying to say. You can either guess what somebody's been through or you can go and seek professional help. And they may not have been through the exact same situation, but they'll have more tools than just somebody that you think, because there's no way of knowing, really, what somebody's been through. So the only way to really base it off of is their qualification. And what you just said there, like, I completely agree with it. You'd want the combination, but it's just like, all I'm trying to say is, if you are struggling, getting somebody that has a qualification, that is a qualified therapist or whatever, will help you. Like that, like, even if it's just minimally to get to you to a certain point. And like, the thing is as well, there's good and bad in everything. Every field is going to have, you're going to have good therapists and bad therapists. You're going to have,
for sure. Like, just because you're qualified, I done an apprenticeship as an electrician. I know many shite qualified electricians. Do you know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
Just because you have put time into something and you've got a certificate that says that you're qualified in it, it doesn't mean you're actually any good at it.
How many times you go to the doctors and they Google your condition?
That's the thing about GPs and all that. I just don't, like, you turn up, I feel like they don't fucking know anything. Do you know what I mean? It's the weirdest thing ever.
Yeah, it's like, I think it's just that's kind of where the system itself is. Because you mentioned earlier about the scenario of, like, when you see a group of young boys that are like all winning the same stuff and all that. The whole system is designed for you to fall into a crowd. Because that's what it's like. You go to school, like, you're born in this free sort of spirit that wants to do all these things and try different things, and then you go to school and it's like, sit here, do this for this amount of time, and go home, do a homework, and come back next day. And it's all about just getting you into that routine, and that, like, you work at this time, and your whole sort of point in life is to kind of, all of it is based around putting yourself in these groups and getting everybody to do a similar sort of thing. So the sponsor for this episode is Lab Solutions, who are a property maintenance company that's actually run by my brother. And listen, I might be better looking than him, but he's a great guy. And you should go and check out everything he does, because he's one of the hardest working people I know. And I'm always making sure that anyone that sponsors this podcast has the same intentions as me and is coming from a good place. And he definitely is one of the hardest workers I know. He will take care of everything you need, just in all those type of areas. And I just want you to make sure that, go and check him out. Make sure that anything you contact Michael about, he'll be sure to help you and give you the best service that you need. Like, you want to get a certain amount of qualifications to get into college, to get into uni, to do this, to that, and then you come out of all that and it's like, right, so all of it really was like, this is what I felt anyway in school. You grow up to realize that, like, none of the system is designed for you to embrace your own individuality, who you are. It's just all designed to kind of encourage you to want to fit in, which is where my depression came from, which is where a lot of young people struggle, because they try and fit in and then people don't accept them.
By the way, I think that's, like, you're talking about that system, I think that's completely by design. I don't think it's by proxy. I don't think it's accidental. I think education, like, all the way from nursery to primary to secondary school to college, university, whether you do a master's, a PhD, I don't care what it is you do, right? I think all of that, apprenticeships as well, is done by design to keep humans unmotivated, keep us in a position where we are constantly looking for, like, a dopamine rush from something else. The amount of people I know whose lives, I would say, in my opinion, are plainly miserable, but they're kept going because, I get a couple of takeaways a week, I get my holiday once a year, I watch Love Island. Like, shut the fuck up, you fucking loser. Do you know what I mean? Like, what a fucking shite existence. I think it's done completely by design. When you're talking about sit down at this desk, do your work, blah, 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 it's just getting you ready for a lifetime of being employed, right? And look, if you want to be an employee and that is what you like doing, and you do a job that you're truly passionate about, and only you as an individual know if that's the truth. You could be lying going, oh yeah, I really love it, just to save face, right? If you're doing something that you really love, you're already winning, right? But most people aren't. I've been in rooms of 200-300 people and I've asked that question. I've been up on stage and I've asked that question, and 1 or 2 hands have went up out of 200 or 300 people. That's fucking insane, right? So that shows to me, I've done that many times, that the majority of people, the vast majority, do not enjoy what they do. but we're conditioned this way from a very young age. Sit here, do that, here's your work, here's this, blah, 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 blah. And all that is doing is making you the perfect molded candidate to just become an employee. And then you go and you get your mortgage and you do this and you do that, and you feel like you can never leave that job. You can never go and explore other avenues of income or other things that you can do with your life, because like you've said, it falls into, it almost designs you to be more susceptible to becoming depressed, because all you're shown is, I even sometimes question myself if like I'm part of the problem, right? Because I'm like, do people open up the phone and see someone like me with a McLaren and a Rolls Royce and blah, blah, blah? Do they see me and go, oh, my life is so shit? Now, I like to think that the way I put my content across and what I do on YouTube, I'm trying to motivate and empower people, right? And I think that's very similar with what you do with this podcast. And I guess just your general message as an individual. But sometimes you need to question yourself, is it because people are opening their phone and they're seeing everyone successful and they're going on Love Island? And generally, if you're on Love Island, you're probably not the ugliest person in the world. So everyone you're watching on TV is kind of good looking and all that. So you just feel shit about yourself. Do you get what I mean? I personally don't, because I wouldn't watch some fucking useless rubbish like that anyway. But I think everything is so by design, from school to media to social media to print media. Everything you see is very deliberate, I think.
To be fair, I would agree with that, right? I would agree with the most of what you just said there, because I do think that it is by design, and you're not encouraged to step out your comfort zone. And comfort zones are where potential goes to die. Do you know what I mean? So that is something that I do believe in. But just from everything you just said there, what was interesting to me is you said that you'd like to think your content comes across as a way of empowering people and such. And while we were talking about this, the whole idea that while we're saying that everything's designed that way, so then if somebody's got a 9 to 5 or just a job that they have been basically nurtured for their whole life, it's very hard to see outside of that headspace or outside of that circle.
For sure.
So when they get excited about a takeaway or a Love Island or that, like that's partly because it's all they know is possible. They're limited in what they see as a potential reality. Now, with that being said, so now that we know that, because everything you think, every opinion you have is based off the life you've lived. And if you've lived a closed life that's been constructed for you since you were like 10 years old to now, you know what I mean? You're not going to think these things that we're thinking about. You're not going to think like, how can I become an entrepreneur that makes all this money and all that? You're not going to think like that. So then when we're talking about positive reinforcement, which is something I very much believe in, because if somebody thinks like that, now I'm not trying to call you out specifically on this, but you use the word a fucking loser, right? Just there, just like, so. I guess that's been something I've noticed about your language has slightly changed over the past like few months, I guess. Where when I first watched you, I thought this guy seems like he's got this strong message. He knows himself and he's trying to do something good in a sense. And I suppose what I'm trying to get at is over the past while, I suppose it's been a bit more. You've been a bit more susceptible to not minding putting somebody in their place or reminding them where they're at specifically. Because I think
that, you know what I mean? I think that realism like that is very important, because positive reinforcement doesn't work for everyone, right? Because some people, this is the reality of the world, right? Some people you will get amazing results out of by saying, let's say they want to be an artist and they draw a picture that isn't amazing, right? It's okay. They draw something it could do better, right? There are some people that if you sit down and go, look, by the way, this bit you've done is really good. That bit you've done is really good, but here's where you can do stuff better. You're going to get an amazing result out of that person if that is how you coach them and train them over an extended period of time. But then there's also some people that need sat down and need told, that is fucking shit. That's terrible. I can't believe you just put that on my desk. Crunch that up, throw it in the bin and come back with something different. and they will perform better with that message, or they will perform better with a mixture of those messages. I agree with you when you say positive reinforcement is very important. I don't think that consistent positive reinforcement is something that is always going to get the best results out of an individual. Sometimes I think you need tough lessons. Maybe this is because in terms of my sporting endeavours, I come from a combat sports background. So in essence, your sport is trying to kill someone else, right? Thankfully, you have a referee and a rule set that stops that, right? But sometimes you need to get told, Richard, you're hitting like a bitch just now. You're not hitting hard enough. You're not trying hard enough. You're not putting enough pressure on that guy. Go forward and do more. Or someone might say, actually, you've done something really good there, but what I want you to do to make that slightly better is this, right? So for me, yeah, I think there's many people that will go out and maybe like myself or like myself previously and just reinforce a positive message. But just now, what I'm trying to give people is absolute realism. Like I'm just, if I think someone is being a loser, if I think someone is being a quitter, if I think someone is doing themselves a disservice per what I believe their potential is, I will tell them that. And I have no issue telling them that. Every single time I do an event, right, a live event, I always put a disclaimer at the start of the event. Before I kick off and I get into my content and actually start breaking down people's individual business goals and going through what it is they're looking to achieve and doing Q&A and stuff like that, I say, I am not here to be easy on you. I'm here to tell you what you need to be told. So if you're going to put your hand up and go, yeah, I want to be successful at business, but I don't want to stop going to fives on a Tuesday, I don't want to stop doing this, I don't want to stop doing that, I don't want to change what I watch on TV, I don't want to use my time better. I'm like, just leave. Like, we can't work together. We can't work together. Is there someone out there who might be able to coach that person to business success? Absolutely. Is it going to be me? Fuck no. Not a chance, right? Because I operate in a certain way. Do I think that, let's go back to the Love Island, the takeaway thing, right? By the way, I love takeaways. Takeaways are fucking class, right? I don't cook at all. I eat out and get takeaways, and my missus is an amazing cook, right? But see, when it comes to like watching TV, I don't watch TV personally, right? That's not me saying somehow, I don't watch TV because I'm too fucking intelligent, whatever. I watch YouTube. That's where my favourite creators are. That's what I like to watch, right? I watch Netflix very rarely. Like some of the Netflix originals they do are quite good, but YouTube is mostly what I watch. So I'm not saying don't consume media. I'm not saying don't. I use TikTok, I use Instagram, I average screen time of about 8 hours per day. It's quite a lot, right? So I use all of these different modes of communication or forms of media, right? But I am very conscious of what I take in on those platforms. I don't watch fucking Mr. Beast. I don't watch Nelk Boys. I don't watch any stuff like that. I watch creators I watch finance documentaries. I watch car creators, people who collect cars or go and visit car collections. That's the type of stuff that I find interesting, right? That I watch. And one, it gives me educational benefits, and two, I actually enjoy it, right? So I am never going to accept from anyone that watching something like Big Brother, Love Island, anything like that, there is truly, in my opinion, right? And I am completely set in this, there's no positive benefit to that. I generally don't see it. What is positively benefiting your life about watching a group of early 20s people in a fucking house in Spain or whatever the fuck it is, getting mad with it and kissing each other? Like, I don't see the benefit. Obviously, it clearly must be entertaining, right? Because they keep on doing it every year and it gets loads and loads of views. But I'm all about efficiency, man. I don't think that's an efficient way of using your time. You can watch something that's still entertaining that's going to give you more value than that, for sure. And that's one of the biggest keys, in my opinion, to success, is changing what you consume. You need to change what you put into your head. If you're consistently watching the news, you're going to be terrified 24/7. Like, the amount of people I know that over my last five or so years in business, right? The amount of people who back at the start were like, oh, yeah, I would have liked to get into that, but you know, the referendums only just happened a couple of years ago. I don't know what it's going to be like. Oh yeah, cool. And then a year later, I'm like, oh, so you think about starting that business? Ah, yeah, but Brexit's happening, so I'm not really sure what I want to do. Oh yeah, cool, no problem. A year later, so you're thinking, ah yeah, COVID-19. A year later, but people will, if you're consistently consuming the news, you're consistently on whatever's trending on Twitter and Bloomberg and all that, like, you're going to be scared to do anything in your life. I try and create my own reality. That's why I only consume certain media, because people can call it ignorance. That is totally fine. I'm happy to be ignorant of all the things that are making people scared and not believe in themselves and not be willing to take a risk and take a chance to actually better their lives. I'm happy to be ignorant to that stuff and be more receptive to the things that function in my reality, which is a world where anyone, regardless of race, gender, sex, whatever, can be successful. And that, in my message, is financial success.
Well, the content that you consume is very important.
For sure.
Like, because it affects the way you think about things and everything like that. So I definitely agree with you on that. And I think a message overall is one of self-empowerment and comes from, with the right intention, if you know what I mean. And I think that when you're talking about, being that way that you're real, and I think that with your own personal drive and motivation, you're constantly looking at elevating yourself and elevating your mindset and thought process, which is admirable, and I can respect that. But then your responses to, because I'm just basing it off of what maybe I've seen and read and certain people have said, is that when you're like kind of blunt about where somebody's at, and it comes from your own self-awareness and self-efficiency and knowing what good habits are and bad habits are, which I understand. That makes sense to me. And the way that you're saying this, it's just kind of who you are and who you want to be. And I don't necessarily think you mean to rub people the wrong way too much.
By the way, I have absolutely no problem with rubbing people the wrong way. I don't want everyone to like me. The less people that like me, when we're talking large number of people, the better. If there's 100,000 people that know me and only 1,000 of those people like me, I see that as a benefit. Because that's 1,000 people who are motivated to do business, to work together, all that kind of stuff. I'm not a people pleaser. I never will be. So when people say stuff like that, and by the way, my message, whether it be respond to people or whatever, no one's sitting with a gun to their head having to comment stuff on my videos or whatever. I tend to always try and match the bar. So if someone comes on and says something negative to me, I don't feel bad if I say something negative back. Does that mean I always say something negative back? No, not strictly. But, I very much live in the world of fuck around and find out. If you are going to comment something rude, unkind, you should expect something like that back. That's the way I've always operated. The same way that if someone hits you, you hit them back. Like, that's the way I've always seen it. It's the way I live.
That kind of adds to the question I'm going to ask, because what I was basically saying is is with that perspective and the way you talk about things, it's very easy to just hear you and go, this guy is a dick.
Pardon me.
Like, it's very easy to hear you and go, this guy is a dick or this guy is a prick or whatever, and just write you off in that sense of being arrogant arsehole, whatever, right? But like that's, but if you're explaining your point of view and why that comes from where it comes from, it makes sense as long as you're well, because we do live in a bit of a world where like people want to hear what they want to hear, and if you're saying something that people don't want to hear, they might not. It's easier just to write you off than actually give that the time of day. But okay, so there's a few things I want to go into here. So I'm wondering where to start. Where do we go next, Richard? Right, you were talking about your message about making money, right? Now, I've been very sort of aware doing the podcast over the past few years that everyone goes through a lot of different experiences and things like that. And money is a very hard thing to make, in life at times, right? And there is elements to where poverty is like a real thing, right? It's a real thing that holds people back from achieving what they want to achieve and getting out of that. Again, coming back to the whole social constructs and different things that happen in life where your opportunities are limited. So then there's one of the things that somebody was saying to me, that they were like, I was sitting across from him, I would say listen to what he says like this. Right?
By the way, people always say they would say shit to me. No, hardly anybody fucking says shit. Do you know what I mean? Because they know if they say enough shit, they'll get slapped. So it doesn't bother me.
Well, please know that when I say this kind of stuff, I'm not looking for a fight, mate.
No, don't be that, mate. It's all good. It's all
I'm
good.
not looking for a fight. Listen, the last fight I was in, I got put in a wheelchair, right? So I don't want to see it, man. You should see the other guy, but he's not
really?
Well, he's 6 feet deep, mate. So, Right. Oh, so there's while you're talking about how let's go out and make this money and do all this stuff, let's do it. And I want to go into what you've made with your own academy and what you've got going on there.
Mm-hmm.
But because I'm sure you're keen to promote that on podcast.
Of course, yeah, of course.
But what this person was saying, and what I was thinking is, while you've worked hard to get where you're at, where you're at, and have achieved a lot of success, when you talk about it, there's a little bit of an element that comes across as if when people say like, oh, I've been brought up in a poor family, or I live in poverty, and there's been times where like you have, for lack of a better put it, kind of put them down a bit and been like, you can still come out of this and still become a millionaire or whatever. Do you not think that what's the best way for me to word this, right? Because it's like, I'm trying to think. Do you not think that idea is, when we're talking about the idea of money, right? Like, there's going to be certain elements that hold people back, and while you've been successful in what you've achieved and what you're doing, is it not? I suppose people will say there's always going to be an element of fortune and luck in that, in the circumstance that you've had. And how would you then, if somebody comes to you and says, look, I've lived in the scheme my whole life, we can barely afford to put food on the table, and you say to them, but you can still become a millionaire.
Can I ask you, what fortune or circumstances have I had that's benefited me in my business journey?
When I say that, I'm not necessarily saying you've had fortune or circumstance, but you've not lived in, maybe not necessarily lived in deep, like I'm talking about deep poverty, like not necessarily, I don't think you were, so I'm not saying that you were like had all this money, you started off with this, golden shovel, if you like. I just mean that there's a baseline that we have. So like, I'm not rich, I've never been poor, right? I've never been like deeply poor, right? I don't necessarily think you've ever been like in a point in your life where you've been like completely living in deep dark poverty.
What is your definition of deep dark poverty?
Well, somebody that just can't afford to put food on the table, or can't.
So you're wrong. Firstly,
I mean,
you're wrong.
But that now, I could be wrong about that. But
I'm telling, just for the avoidance of all doubt, I'm telling you you're wrong.
I guess I'm trying to figure out the right way of putting this. But what I'm saying is that how do we know? How can you tell somebody when you've had the success? That if somebody says to you, "I've had to go through this and that," how are you able to then justify saying to them, you can still get to where I am? And what would you say to them, basically?
So the reason I can justify that is because I've been there and I've done it. I've been in that position. Is this not exactly what you're trying to do with your podcast? Or would you rather people who see themselves as people living with disabilities, would you rather they just combine themselves to the box that you've broken out of? Because is that not exactly what I'm doing? People are putting themselves in a box saying the things that I heard when I was young. Money isn't for people like us. Money doesn't grow on trees. If you have money, you had to fuck someone over. Like, there was a real disdain for success. People hated anyone that was successful, right? And it was just normal. And that it was because no one had any money. That's why. Like, there was nobody. I stayed in the only full block of council flats in the whole of the south side of Pollock Shields. The whole place, right? You go past where we lived, 200-300 meters. It was the largest, most opulent sandstone villas you've ever seen in your life. Some of those beautiful houses you'll ever see. Thankfully, where I live now, right? I live just up the road from where I grew up. But we stayed in these horrible flats built in the 1960s. They were riddled with damp. They were disgusting, right? The flats were horrible. By the way, did I love growing up there? Yes, because all my friends were there and there was loads of different families and all that kind of stuff. It was outside of the living conditions, it was a good place to grow up because you always had friends and people to play with, right? But I think there is nothing wrong with directly empowering people, whether it be through a positive message or a message of reality, that is possible to go and be successful from a background like mine, right? Is it likely? Well, the matter of the fact is, no, it's not likely, because success as a whole isn't likely, because 99% of people are not willing to do the things that are required to become financially successful, regardless of whether you're from the scheme, you're from fucking Bell's Den, you live in Monaco, you're from Section 8 housing in fucking Chicago, right? That doesn't matter where you're from. There is under 1%, I would say under 0.5% of the world that are willing to do the things that you have to do in order to be successful. That goes outside of social boundaries. That goes outside of how and where you grew up. That is just a fact, right? But I think there's nothing wrong, nothing disingenuous or unfair about me as someone who grew up in this scheme, who has had members of my own family pass away from drug-related deaths, grew up visiting many members of my family inside of the prison system in the UK. I've been there, I've done that, I've lived it. That's been my life. And having that be my reality as a young person, having now gone and built what I have built and will continue to build, and it's nowhere near what it will end up being. I still feel like I'm at the start and I'm just getting the ball rolling. That's how I feel. I think I am showing people what is possible, the same way that you are, the same way you're showing people that, okay, you have been labelled as X when you were born because someone said that you had this condition or that condition. Well, here's me. I get told I had this, that, and the next thing, and I've been able to break out of that box and go and actually do things that people told me I was maybe never going to do. And here's me talking about my experience and promoting that to you on why you can do it, right? I feel like that's exactly what I'm doing. Because for me, I don't claim to live a life I haven't lived. I know plenty of people, I'm not saying I like them, but I know plenty of people who are very successful, who grew up very successful, who pretend they grew up with no money, which I always find is very weird, because as getting older and imagine myself as a parent, I want my children to grow up successful. Of course I do, because I know what it's like to not grow up successful and still have two loving parents and feel like I never missed out on really anything. Because the thing is, when you grow up in a scheme, you don't have any money, you don't know. Do you get what I mean? You don't realise that until you see the bigger world, right? But I think it's very important to just live in absolute realism. Whether it is one person has achieved it or there is many people who have achieved it, if something is humanly possible, generally it's within your reach. There's 55 million millionaires on planet Earth today. If you were standing in a queue of 55 million people having achieved, if you were standing in a queue to achieve anything, right? And 55 million people were walking the planet that had done that before. By the way, that's 10 times the population of Scotland. You would surely have a little bit more confidence to go, 55 million people have done that before. That's probably something I can do. There's over $400 trillion in circulation in the world today. So realistically speaking, now a lot of that's made up of debt and large institutions holding huge amounts of that money. But when you think about that much being in circulation, $1 million's not a lot of money. It's not. Yeah. Like, it's really not. And I have friends who are, like I said, worth 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 plus million. And when they hear about someone talking like, oh, I made $1 million here, they laugh about it because they think, oh, remember when we were back at the start of our journey and we were excited about stuff like that? And it's laughter among friends. Do you know what I mean? It's taken well. It's just jovial. I do that with my friends all the time. Like, I'll go and buy a car and one of them will send in a photo of one of their Lamborghinis or whatever, and it's worth 3 times the car I just bought. And it's funny and it actually motivates me. But I think when it comes to qualification, I think I'm very qualified to tell people from a similar background to myself that stuff that they have been told or they believe within themselves is not possible and not achievable by them is wholly achievable. Does that mean I always have to say it in a nice way? No, because I'm here to tell people the truth. I'm not always here to make people happy. That is the way I see how I have to put my message across.
That makes total sense to me, and I think that was just a point that I felt like people wanted me to address with you and see what you would say. And I think you.
By the way, there's so many misconceptions about how I was brought up. People think my dad started fuel smoothies, fuck knows where people got that from. Like there is so many. Like my dad's a scrap metal fucking empire lord guy or whatever the fuck, right? There is so many rumours that I get brought up around this and that and blah blah blah. Like I don't know. I don't know how people want me to prove. Right. And by the way, I have nothing to prove to anyone in a sense as well. So if someone came up to me and went, prove to me that you grew up there, I'd be like, mate, fuck off. Like, stop annoying me, you fucking weirdo, right? Like, it wouldn't bother me. But I know where I grew up. I know how I grew up. I know the people I grew up around. I know the experiences that I had. And that is enough for me, you know? Like, I think there's many misconceptions that anyone who is successful, I get the comments all the time, oh, daddy's money, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, cool. And I actually think that's very sad, especially when I go on people's profiles and, you know, they have kids and stuff. I'm like, really? That's your mindset? That's what you're going to instill into those kids? Is that they can only achieve stuff through daddy's money? And from what I can see, daddy has no fucking money. That's why he's wasting his time commenting on my shit, making an arse of himself. So that's one of the things that I find so sad about the money mindset of Scotland, is that how terribly some people think about money and think about those who have money. And by the way, there are people who have made money in horrific ways. There's also people who have done horrific things who are skint. Like, there is bad ways to make money. There's good ways to make money. That's the reality of the world. So I'm not saying that everyone who has made a huge amount of money deserves respect, because some people have done it, like I say, in a way that is not legal, moral, or ethical. But I think that Scotland is probably one of the worst places I've ever been in the world with regards to people's opinions of success. As soon as they see people with money, they just hate it. They just hate it straight away.
We've always had kind of a negative culture with any type of success, whether it was in money, sports, anything. So that doesn't make sense. And I was going to ask you if you feel as if there's people misunderstand your message, because you were saying, like, it doesn't necessarily that you come across in a nice way because I know who I am and I know what I want to do. And you've just kind of explained that, but as you were, because I think that when you're saying something with such confidence and you know, what's the word?
Conviction.
That almost, I think that almost unsettles people, because it's like, I don't know if I can really like this guy because he's so sure of himself that it annoys me a little bit.
I would say that's a problem with them. And that's a problem that they need to fix within themselves. Because when I meet someone who is supremely confident in what they're able to do and the results that they can provide and the things that they have achieved, I have nothing but respect for those people. Even if I don't like them, even if I don't see eye to eye with them, we have differing opinions on whether that be politics or fucking whatever it may be, right? I can still deeply respect that person because they understand what they want. They've set out a plan to go and achieve that, and they've executed that plan and achieved it. I have to respect that, whether I like them or not. And I think anyone who has a problem with how I put my message across, that's a problem within themselves. And the way I see social media content is that everyone speaks in their own language. And that language, the same way that if I can't speak German, right? But if I started speaking German to you right now, do you speak German? No. Right. If I started speaking German in this podcast, you'd be going, Richard, what are you talking about? Because I'm speaking in a language, a literal language that you don't understand, right? So I find that in my social media, I'm speaking in a language that resonates with people who are like me. I don't have the time nor the desire to convert people to liking me. Does that make sense? Or convert people to my way of thinking. I will speak that language and it will resonate with the people who have already got the hardware. They just need the software update. Does that make sense? It's all about reprogramming. That's what I'm trying to do, is reprogram the way people have been thinking.
To be fair, that makes sense to me, and you know, I can't argue with that. I think one of the things as well was the idea of becoming rich and being like a millionaire, right? That, you know, there's the argument that you wanted that the goal should be to distribute wealth, kind of try to make it as widespread as you can. So obviously, one way to do that is to have money anyway, and then you can share it with folk and stuff like that. You spoke a bit there about where you came from and the background and the places that you've seen and lived in. Have you thought about or done anything at this point to maybe give back to those areas?
Of course. And here's one thing I mentioned on a podcast previous, and this clip went, I'm not saying viral, but it got maybe 300,000 or 400,000 views on,
here we go
on
then,
TikTok, right? But I firstly believe it is extremely disingenuous to post acts of charity online. That's my opinion. I think if you video yourself handing money to a homeless person, or you video yourself asking someone who is hungry if they would like food, and you do that for social media interaction, you're a unbelievably large piece of shit. That is my opinion, right? Now, people can counteract that argument and say, but it's better than them doing nothing and all that. I think there is nothing more dehumanizing than saying to someone, I will give you this thing. You're down on your luck, you're in a position that's bad in your life, but I'll give you this thing as long as I can hold my phone in your face and post it online. I think that makes you a scumbag, right? That's my opinion. Now, that is to then frame the fact that I do so much charity work, so much free work, I just do not post about it because it's not part of what I want to put out there. Will I discuss it in ways like this? Of course. Where my block of flats, well, they've now been ripped down and they're building new flats there now. About 100 metres across the road, there's like a Spar and a Ladbrokes and stuff. And then the Pollock Shields Community Food Point, our food bank is there. I buy Christmas presents for kids in Pollock Shields every single year, and I have them for years. Just there was 18 teenagers in Pollock Shields. They got enough presents for all the younger kids. There's 18 teenagers in Pollock Shields with 0 Christmas presents, just in that little area, right? And I went and bought individual packages of Christmas presents for every single child. 10 girls, 8 boys. All of them got clothes, AirPods, money. Like, they got everything that they needed. It cost me thousands of pounds, right? But to me, that's not a lot of money, right? And I don't feel the need to have to post that online, standing outside of somewhere that people, because by the way, see, when I go down to that food bank and I drop money in and I do this and that, like, I see the parents of people I went to school with coming in there. So I'm not going to start filming myself in there and say, hey everyone, look at me, my name's fucking Richard, I just bought fucking Christmas presents for these kids. Like, I don't need that, because I feel good about myself dropping that off. So I do that and stuff similar for many places, especially my community. I'm very community focused on Pollock Shields. That's not me saying I wouldn't donate to charity outside of Pollock Shields or whatever. I'm just very focused on my community and knowing how I grew up there and how I can potentially impact the lives of people there more positively. I sponsor a lot of young athletes and young people's sports clubs and stuff like that. And I speak a lot for free at schools as well. Just go in and try and give lessons on entrepreneurship and lessons on, positive mindset and trying to solidify positive thinking and understanding that stuff that you want to achieve is actually achievable, that you're not confined by how you grew up, basically.
That's class. And I think what's really interesting about that is that image that we talked about, some people might just write you off and say he's this and that and next thing. Posting about that more would maybe help that.
I'll never post about it more.
But that's what's interesting about it, is that it goes to show how much you don't really. It doesn't matter. The only opinion that should so there's a difference between your reputation and your character. Mm-hmm. And your reputation is always going to be different than what your true character is. Mm-hmm. So if your true character is you're thinking about all these things in a positive way, and you've explained why you've talked the way that you talk, and behind closed doors you're doing other charity work, then maybe that reputation doesn't necessarily fit who you actually are as a person. So fair play to you for that. And there's a couple so as we talk about, where was I going to go there with that? It's so annoying that.
I hate when you do that. Like, you've got something to say in your head and it just falls away.
So, when you talk, so you're talking about like helping your area and things like that. What you're doing now is you've got your own brand, if you like, and the name of it is actually gone at my head now, right?
Young Entrepreneur Society.
Young Entrepreneur Society. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's alright. It's alright. Don't worry.
Keep my podcast.
It's all good. It's all good. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Now, I want to talk. Well, the actual question I was thinking about, but this was the second question I was going to ask. But the question before that was going to be that: do you? Fuck's sake. Right, we'll come back to it. When you've got this Entrepreneur Society thing, that we're talking about that you've got a kind of plan for it. Now there's a lot of kind of talk about, you've talked about traditional views and things like that.
Mhm.
What do you think the difference is? Because like somebody like you've seen a lot of talk about Andrew Tate and people like that now, right? And there's obviously a lot of bad things there in a way, right? But I'm curious as to what you would, toxic masculinity, right, is a thing that has been talked about a lot, and how that is, I think that is a real thing. But what do you think the difference is between toxic masculinity and non-toxic masculinity, I guess?
I kind of believe that toxic masculinity to a degree is just a buzzword to make certain people feel better about themselves. I don't think that there's anything toxically masculine about telling young men to be stronger, to be more physically capable, to be able to defend themselves or people they care about, to drive nice cars, to make loads of money, to be intelligent, strong, and driven members of the community. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I am a very traditional person in the sense that I do see men mostly as providers. That's why I am more than happy in my relationship to be that, to pay for the house, to pay for the cars, to pay for the holidays. And I don't do that in a way that makes me feel, oh, this is unfair. Like, it's all about equality. I see myself as a provider and as a protector, the same way that if someone came into my house and threatened my home, the people who were in there, I would gladly, if I had to, and I would love to think that I didn't have to, I would gladly lose my life to defend the people that were inside my home, whether they were men, women, children, my dog. I would do whatever I had to do within my power to ensure that even at my own detriment or potentially my own death, I protected the people that I cared about. I don't think there's anything toxically masculine about that. I just don't at all. About being a provider, about being a strong man. I think toxic masculinity is for the most part a buzzword used by people. I have never fell victim or fell foul to feeling that something, an expectation of me or whatnot, is toxically masculine. I think there's some concepts and ideas around men's mental health that I don't think you would call toxically masculine. I don't think that's the right word to use for it. But there's probably some stuff around that could fall into category similar. Like, oh, guys shouldn't talk about the problems. Me personally, I never talk about my problems. And it genuinely does not affect me. That is me personally. Like, if my problems generally come from business, and the problems within my business, I'll talk to advisors about and business partners and whatnot. But stuff that upsets me or angers me, I don't discuss with people, because I personally luckily have the capability to be able to take those emotions in, process them and ditch them and move on. So that's not me saying that I encourage other people to do that. Everybody operates differently. Some people can really manage the problems that they have. Some people could really benefit from speaking to someone else, and that could really positively benefit their life. So I don't think it's absolute in the sense it needs to be either of those. But I think if we're talking toxic masculinity, or what could be perceived as that, more of that is going to fall into the men's mental health side of things, as opposed to societal constructs of a man, because I live like that, so I don't see it as toxic myself.
Interesting. Because I think a lot of what you said there when you were talking about that masculinity were positive things. It wasn't a negative thing. How you described that. But the way that I sort of look at it is when somebody says something's toxic masculinity, is when they take those things and implement them in a negative, bad way. So like, if a guy implements them to mean that he's entitled to a woman behaving a certain way, or entitled to the right to be, like you're looking at, you're saying it all from a positive, healthy perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of guys use masculinity as an excuse to be a dick to people. I'll finish on what I would say is a more positive way to finish on, which is, you spoke on, and this is something that I was trying to ask earlier, but I forgot. Now, you spoke on how you've not really been depressed or, had sort of deep mental health struggles.
Yes.
But you've also spoke about how you came from a rough background and tough situations coming through that. So my question would be, how did you actually get to this point where you had this mindset? Because a lot of people that come through that kind of thing are going to have down times, and what allowed you to have such a strong mentality? But along with that, what would you say is the most difficult obstacle that you've had to overcome to this point?
I think that I've been brought up, I guess, to a degree as a traditional man. I was taught from a very young age how to defend myself. The one thing that I was never denied, regardless of our income position in the household, was the ability to train in combat sports, was to put myself through hard physical tests from a very young age. I think that's very important, especially for young men's development, to have that outlet. My grandpa is a very masculine man. He's a senior fire officer. He's a big, strong guy. My dad, also a big, strong man, very hardworking. I have never. I think feeling depressed and suffering from depression is two different things. Have I had moments where I have felt what depression is like because something in that moment has happened that's upset me or annoyed me? Of course, but I've never felt myself being bound by depression. The mindset that I've built has been a lifetime in the making, from being a young athlete to the friendships that I've had, the situations that life has dealt me, the time, money included, and effort that I've put into getting around the right people and understanding how millionaires think, understanding how billionaires think, understanding how world champions and different sporting endeavours think, and taking the best bits from them and what they learn. And even guys like Tate as well. Like I have listened and taken many lessons from how he thinks, and how to create an iron mind. And I feel like I'm now in a position in my life that the only things that can bother me are the things that I allow to bother me. There are always going to be things that upset you, like deaths and whatever. But there's little people can do to offend me, break me down. If I lost everything tomorrow, I would be upset about it. I'd probably be annoyed for a week or two. And then I would get back on the horse and I'd have everything again, and I'd probably do it faster than I did it the first time around.
Well, listen, Richard, I think there's a lot of things that we could continue to talk about.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
This has probably been one of the kind of quickest flowing podcasts I've done in terms of just how fast the time has went by.
Yeah.
But it's one of the things I've been really keen on in the podcast is just having that different view and different opinion, because a lot of podcasts these days, you get two people with the exact same opinions. It's just like them going for an hour going, I agree with that, I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it was quite exhilarating to have a
debate is healthy. That's the thing. It's like obviously you can get into debate where people then start being offensive to each other and blah blah blah, and that's just stupid, and it totally takes away from whatever cause you're sticking up from. It's very important, and has been throughout the history of the world, for people to sit down and have positive discourse, whether you agree on everything or not. It's very important. It's the only way we can mutually understand how other human beings work and operate, is to sit down and have discussions like this. So I'm glad that we were able to have a civilized, differing discussion.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's something that's it's rare, and it shows people that if you don't fully agree on everything, because we have agreed on a lot of things, if you don't fully agree on everything, it doesn't necessarily mean that you should avoid that conversation. You know, so I hope you've enjoyed this.
Yeah, it's been good.
Enjoyed it,
it's been good,
and I appreciate you making the time. Is there anything you want to plug just at the end here? You've got your
look.
Society.
If you are a young person, talk to the camera, interested in business, mental development, physical development, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram at Richard Greg Dickson. You can find more information about the Young Entrepreneur Society there. That's my development academy, where we help young people become physically more capable, mentally more capable, and the most financially successful versions of themselves possible. And I'm more than happy to assist with anyone who's looking to get on that path.
Brilliant, Richard. Thank you very much.
Thank you.